Hello, juniors. So I want to just recap a modest proposal. We really didn't have all that much time to talk about it when we were in the group the other day, and I think it's worth talking about because of the features of satire that we experience with this, and also an argument. And both of those are the meat of our course. So rhetoric, the power of language to persuade, and then we combine that with satire, which is, has any number of features that you've already looked at. But we're going to talk about modest proposal here and use Space Cat a little bit to talk about it. If you were going to write a rhetorical analysis of this, which you aren't, that's what you would do. You would remember that we want to look at all those things that are embodied in the acronym Space Cat. So just starting there, we have our speaker. He's purporting to be an expert, right? He's showing us that he has some ethos around this proposal that he wants to put forth. And that comes from his many years studying or thinking about how to solve this horrible problem, which is the exigence, which is the motivation for the speech, the poverty in Ireland, the fact that there are a lot of women without gainful employment, a lot of women, unmarried women who have many children that they can't feed. And this is problematic. And also we have the English that are kind of washing their hands of the Irish and actually mistreating them. So being from both of those backgrounds, Swift has some things to say here. He's living in Ireland now. He's probably in the latter fourth of his lifetime, and he has an interest in his country of Ireland. It makes him sad what's happening. So he starts off by acknowledging the problem, which he says down here, I think it is agreed by all parties that these children, all these children that are on the back or the heels of their mothers and frequently their fathers, is in the present deplorable state of the kingdom a very great grievance. And therefore these children have to be put to good use, right? We've got to find something to warrant their existence, right? And that is part of how he's working up into his proposal. So by acknowledging that they all can agree on the same problem, he's putting forth that he's a man of good intention, and that's what anybody who argues a point wants to do. So we're all on the same page regarding the problem of poverty. Let's do something with these children. Let's make them useful in some way. So he goes on. So speaker. And his purpose is to persuade them to take action. We're going Space Cat. Speaker purpose. Purpose is to take them to propose that action be taken here by the people that can affect change. So who is his audience? His audience is a little elusive because it's satire. So anybody can enjoy this, but the fact is, although how seriously will the people that can affect the change really take it is questionable. So, but ostensibly, he wants to target the people that can make the changes, the upper classes, who are taking advantage of the lower classes. So that's his audience. And then what do we have here? The context is thinking about that. This is the time we call this like a deliberative argument because it projects into the future a solution to a problem. It doesn't break down one that's already past its day. It deals with future events that are to come if nothing is done. So deliberative, but that doesn't matter. You probably won't ever use that. So again, he's developing his ethos at the beginning. I've thought about this for many years. I've listened to the schemes of other projectors. I've always found them grossly mistaken in computation. And then he concedes a little bit. It is true a child just dropped from its dam, may be supported by her milk for a year with little other nourishment. So they don't cost that much at the beginning, right? And that is true. And that's what one could argue that. But and so thereby, because they don't cost that much in their first year, it's what happens after that first year that my proposal is targeting. So just noticing here the first use, I think it is the first use of the comparison of the child to a animal. Really, it's using terms of animal husbandry, right? And the breeders, when he talks about breeders, that's what he's really doing is comparing the people to animals, and therefore beginning to dehumanize them, beginning to use that language anyway. So he says, "Listen to me, hear me out. I have a great scheme with what to do with women when they, or what to do with children when they become costly, after, i.e., after their first year." So he says another great outcome of my proposal will be that women will no longer want to abort their children, which they've been doing apparently, voluntary abortions and murdering the children. And now with my proposal, they won't want to do that anymore. So cause and effect reasoning, if you take my suggestion, something good will happen because of it. He hasn't told us quite what that is yet. And now he starts drawing on statistics again. And so who are we going to, with which of the population, the young people, is my proposal going to involve? And he starts talking numbers now, which gives him some credibility, some logos, furthers his logic with more statistical calculations. And here he goes. Now I'm going to humbly propose, and we always want humility on the part of the speaker. If somebody is humble, we give them more of a chance to be heard than if he's just coming on gangbusters and saying, this is what we got to do, right? So he's being humble there. And now he's drawing on another expert, an American, he says, who assures me that a child well nursed is at a year old very delicious. So here's what we're going to do with those 1-year-olds, right? But this American knows about what a child would taste like and what one could do in terms of cooking a child at 1. So he's drawing on some supposed authority, developing his ethos. Yep. And more ethos as he goes down, throwing out numbers again. We can increase that child to a 28-pounder by the time they're 1, and therefore we've got a lot of meat, right, to work with here. And here, the first instance of wordplay, which is a feature of satire. I grant this food will be somewhat dear and therefore very proper for landlords who, as they are already devoured most of the parents, seem to have best title to the children. So some logical reasoning there, but he's using devoured in the sense of non-literal sense here, just taking advantage of the parents. That's what he means there. That's wordplay. So again, he goes on talking about how wonderful infant flesh is. And let's see, more calculations. He's starting to talk about the process. The process analysis is a mode. And he's saying that if we're really frugal and efficient, we could even use the skin of the children to make gloves for ladies and summer boots for fine gentlemen. So, waste not, want not, right? And then again, I see more of this language of dehumanization here. I rather recommend buying the children alive and dressing them hot from the knife as we do roasting pigs. So again, people to animals. And then there's another expert he draws upon whom has suggested that maybe older children would be good to eat as well. But he says, oh, no, I don't think so. This is a good man who's trying to make a helpful suggestion, but they're just too tough when they get that old. So, and then he goes on to say, it's not improbable also that some scrupulous people might apt to censure such a practice as a little bordering on cruelty, which I confess have always been, with me, the strongest objection against any project, however so well-intentioned. Yeah, it's cruel, but this is a well-intentioned idea, and the end justifies the means, right? Kind of furthering the objective tone and purpose. The solution is necessary, and the necessity of the solution trumps any consideration of cruelty. So he belittles the idea of the empathetic response, which we do, by the way, throughout, have pathos throughout this whole piece because, well, satiric in terms of its satire, it makes us laugh. And because we realize that now that this is not modest, but outrageous proposal, right? Irony there. And so pathos is there throughout. Also pathos in terms of, ew, really eating children? Come on, it's a little revolting. And so he's drawing on more experts here, again, building his case for feeding babies to well-off people. But he says, I've digressed, and now I have to go back. So now he uses a technique of listing all the advantages of his proposal. So there's all these things that come about, those wonderful things that will happen as a result of babies. I won't go over them all, but they are all there. Many other might be enumerated. And just coming back to Space Cat. Oh yeah, we're over at the exigence part. We've already talked about exigence. C for cat choices. These are the choices he's making to develop his ethos, pathos, logos, playing on words here a little bit, using a little cause and effect, logic, using some process analysis. How are we going to do this? What will it be good for? And so all the appeals are being used, which is the A of Space Cat. And then the tone I mentioned was calm and rational, and which kind of adds to the horror when you think about it. Anybody that would propose such a horrible solution, but deliver it in such an objective tone, that just seems to make it all the more horrific. And finally, at the end, he does acknowledge a counter objection or a counter argument to his proposal, that by doing this, we're going to lose a bunch of people, right? We're going to, the number of people will be thereby much lessened in the kingdom. But he's saying, indeed, I freely own this, because that was part of the benefit, right? We have too many people here in Ireland, but he does say that I calculate my remedy for this one individual kingdom of Ireland, and for no other that ever was or ever is upon this earth. So, but he's saying that, he's basically saying Ireland is the only country that warrants such a means to reduce the population. So again, highlighting how horrible this, or the extent to which they need to go to solve this problem. Okay, and then here it is. It's a stated argument and the real argument. Remember, that's what satire does sometimes. A stated argument, this is a reasonable solution, that's the proposer. Okay, the proposer is not Swift, though. Swift is this person who really is just throwing up his arms in despair now and frustration, because all these real solutions, taxing absentee landlords, using goods made in their home country, quitting overindulgence, teaching landlords to show some mercy on their poor tenants. All these things, he said, they just won't work, right? Talk to me of no other experience, but this is what he really wants to happen. So let's see. There is a little bit more wordplay here when he's saying that if we could think about exporting some of these children, but no, let's keep the goods in Ireland for ourselves, because we really can't salt the meat here to keep it. We can't preserve it with salt. So, but that's good, because we should just keep it here. He does say, for this kind of commodity will not bear exportation, blah, 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 to admit a long continuance in salt, although perhaps I could name a country which would be glad to eat up our whole nation without it. Salt, okay, there's eating up the nation again. He's referring to England, taking advantage of Ireland. He says, let's see, after all, I'm not so violently bent upon my own opinion as to reject any offer, which you could show me that would be better, but he says, I haven't heard anything better. And here's that passage that I spoke about, or that I asked you about in the homework challenges. So this furthers his authorial point of view. He says, if you ask any of these people if they would rather have been eaten or killed than to endure the agony that they've had to go through, they will probably agree. So he's acknowledging that he understands this problem, and he's trying to call their attention to how grave it is. And he can't imagine that they wouldn't understand if they talked to the people. So, and then at the end, there's a little bit of irony here, because he says, well, I'm not doing this for me, understand, because I don't have any children that are young enough to sell, which of course, is really the best thing for him. He doesn't have to